many cities and nations have the nil vision. We don't accept fatalities in the traffic, but it has also become a target for the car manufacturing industry. So we are sharing visions, and we are sharing goals much more than we did earlier.
It's not always easy to bring stakeholders work together. We experienced that with our ports, with Upper Rhine ports. I told you the 3 countries, that's to say 3 cultures, and the German and the Swiss and the French culture, there are cultural differences, and it's not so easy. And also with when we talk about ITS and sharing of data, the companies, the bargers, the freight forwarders, and so on, are not always. They don't want to share the data. They want to get the data, but to share it is not an evidence. They want to know what they are getting out of it, what the productivity, and the second challenge we have is to make them confidence in the company, or
it's the freight forwarding companies, the truck driver, and everybody has his own objectives and targets, and don't want to share everything. But yeah, but I think we found a way how we could convince them to define a setup of data which they can share and which they want to share. We, for example, analyzed the sorry. We analyzed the current situation through interviews. We talked to everybody. Also, we conducted traffic simulations for the future and found out the bottlenecks. And on that basis, we developed a solution design and implementation. I think a good idea.
By rail and by water, really until the last maybe 500 meters. That's how far we are from the cathedral here. So how are you working on this proximity logistics from a port and from a city perspective? Because I think that is such a big growing market, and for ITS very important.
Of course, we are working with the city to improve this problem. In the moment, I would say the main problem in the city is to have regulation for vehicles going into the city. If you have a gun in Strasbourg about 6 o'clock in the morning, for those waking very early, you saw that you have many trucks going in the center of the city to bring the freight there, and we must have work with the city in order to regulate this, and then bring market solutions to that. And the role of the Port Authority and of the city, of course, is to have all the stakeholders being working together to say, well, if Galeries Lafayette and Printemps want to have the same goods delivered at 7 o'clock, why having 2 trucks? But it's not so easy because the logistics chains are so based, yes, and you must work horizontally, and it's not easy for the stakeholders.
Yeah, I totally agree that you have to work with the market because it's not a public task to distribute goods. So it's very interesting for us to support solutions, for example, from hubs where startups and other companies are taking goods into the city. Because I share the experience that if you come into the inner city in Copenhagen in the morning, it's not very environmental friendly. There's a lot of trucks, there's a lot of vehicles delivering goods, and they're completely filling up our pedestrian streets and so on. So supporting the market for smarter solution, for more effective use of the trucks. We often see trucks coming into the inner city with just one parcel. Maybe there could be 10 parcels in the same truck. And working with private sector to have a more effective use of their trucks, more environmental friendly delivering of goods is a very important challenge for the cities.
And how do you see the issue of protection of data? Because the smart cities raise the problem, the issue of protection of the data. How do you see this?
A very, very difficult question. If I talk to city authorities, they get the same question as your port companies and your shippers have said. Well, many city authorities get questions, demands for their data, but don't get anything back. That is sometimes the complaint. Trusted platforms are important, where you can share your data. And we have some regulatory standards for this in place, but I think you can regulate whatever you like. I think it's a lot more about for what and why that's more important, rather than who decides on which standard. But this year, next year, we will set, from the Commission side, we will set up a lot more standards for this, CITS standards, multimodal information standards, tolling standards, so as part of the 3 big road packages that we're setting up.
Yeah,
Something.
data protection is always, as you said, a difficult topic, and you need to be very careful to handle them, especially if we are talking about personal data, like, for example, license plates and so on. You can use, for example, to detect the travel time and travel speed on different routes. You can use detectors like NPR, license plate recognition cameras, to detect the speed, but there you need also some solutions how you can ensure that the personal data are not sent to another platforms and published and so on. And and there are some solutions how we can do it, but it's general a topic where you have a lot of discussions and you have to convince a lot of people.
And what we experienced that also the data protection laws are not the same in every country. They are not European, and you have data protection laws in Germany that are less permissive in some ranges, and in France it's a country. That's not easy to manage.
Yes, I would like to back Marco Lütke, because we have mentioned a lot of innovative, big projects. How do you approach these kind of projects?
Yeah, I mean, it's always about transparency, 3 steps. Transparency, create insights, and try to control the processes. Yeah? You can create transparency through, as mentioned, detectors, for example, or other detectors like the APR cameras or Bluetooth detectors, RFID scanners at the logistics sites, for example. You can get insights through intelligent algorithm software, and then try to influence and control the processes. And as I mentioned before, you need to talk to the people to make an current situation analysis through interviews, through simulations, and then try to find the common nenner in German. Yeah, don't know in English how it is. The common base, and then trying to find the specific solution. Because every city, every port is unique, and you need to find a specific solution for them, how they can face their challenges.
And so who is interested in these kind of projects? Who's finally the customer?
Yeah, the final customer should be the company who's responsible for the infrastructure, and normally it's I would say the port. The port is responsible for the infrastructure of the port, and they are interested in high quality infrastructure, but you have an overlapping with cities, because trucks, for example, are not flying to ports. They are using the roads, and they are parking in residential areas, and are responsible for congestion, pollution, and so on. And so you need to involve also the cities, and the cities need to think also about buffer parking zones, for example, to support the port services.
Okay, and what can a port do to be attractive for employees or for workers?
We must, yes, we must offer new solutions for employers. For example, to come to the port. We are a great area, as I said, more than 1,000 hectares, and we worked about a plan to help the employees to come to the port, and with the city we had a new application called our Optimix. That it's an application with it the employee knows how to come to the port with public transportation, co-working or
Car sharing,
car sharing or so, or cycling. Of course, in Strasbourg it's also possible, and that leads to for the workers it's a good thing, because they can economize a lot of money with that. But it's also important for the companies, because they become more attractive for the employees when they bring also a solution to get to the company. But it's not an evidence to go to the port at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's sure, but we must have a solution, and Optimix is a solution to tell the employee, of course, you can go to the port with public transportation at 5 o'clock in the morning, but it's not. How do you get that information if you haven't such solution?
How can a port be attractive for employees?
I don't really know, but the ports are developing. They are modern workplaces. They're being cleaner and cleaner workplaces, attractive workplaces. So, as far as I know, the Copenhagen-Malmö port has not had problems as to recruit personnel and workers.
I love your example about a tailored, shared and public transport and information, and I think it's really important, because our port workers, if you look at purely the port workers, we are working with an aging population, and we really need to think about, okay, what are the skills for the future, for our port workers in the future, but also how can ports diversify. And we are here in the ITS, in the cutting edge of technology, so you see that a lot of the changes in supply chains, in 3D printing and automation, I think those are amazing opportunities for our next generation people that are working in the ports. And the other discussion that ties into that is next year we will set up a big entrepreneurship and education program called KIC Innovation, and it will be in urban mobility. And this KIC Urban Mobility, Knowledge and Innovation Community in Urban Mobility, will exactly do that, find and develop new forms of entrepreneurship and education and skills to make a transport career should change from a job into a career. Transport used to be seen as something very hard and dirty. And if you walk around and cycle around in today's port, it's clean and savvy and smart. So this KIC Urban Mobility will bring together education, masters, summer courses, industry. It's industry driven to develop this new generation of urban mobility workers. And I would very much invite ports to come into this conversation and into these networks. So it starts next year, 2018.
Okay, great. I would like you to make a comment on emerging concepts like dry ports. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think dry ports are very important because the infrastructure capacity on the big seaports are on the capacity limit, I would say. different of the year. Sometimes it's more on the capacity limit, sometimes less, but dry ports are very important to handle the containers and the freight in the hinterland of each port and to distribute them further to other destinations, and they are very, very important, I would say.
You have also this concept for inland ports. That's to say, for example, a container comes from China. It's full. Then it goes to a factory. Then it comes back to the port of Strasbourg, empty. Then another factory gets these containers, empty, and so on. That's to say that you have you have twice the traffic, and we are searching also smaller ports outside of the city, so that in major cities like near Strasbourg, Saverne, or Molsheim, you can get containers there without having a truck going to Strasbourg searching it. But it's also leads to data sharing, because these smaller terminals cannot handle with all the companies, all the containers owners, and so on. So it's very touchy to manage these data.
We have not got experiences with dry ports so far. I think we have been able to develop the seaports having the possibility to extend the area by, for example, filling the muck from the metro. So we are extending the port areas, but from the seaside.
And do you think that passengers and freight can share the same mobility services?
I would agree. I mean,
Excellent.
we have on the passenger side, we have topics like Uber or My Taxi in Germany, platforms where you can share the driver's information and the passenger's information. And I think freight sharing platforms will occur in the next time. And I think it's the next big thing in the logistics industry, where an autonomous truck will find the freight by its own, or the freight will find the truck, and everything will go more smoothly and efficient than today.
So, what do you think, in order to conclude now, what do you think will be the next steps? What will be the future? Are there any barriers in developing the
Maybe
future? Yes, or you would?
Yeah, I think we have seen some spectacular failures in bringing together passenger and freight. Where some of the planning regulation or some of the data sharing, I mean, there are handbooks full of why this does not work or has not worked at the moment up to now. But I am positive, and I think with the new technologies and with automation and bringing in a lot more connectivity, we will get there, because in the end it's about optimization of your infrastructure. And you can do this by pricing, by regulation.
Yeah, can you be a bit more concrete, perhaps, in how you see the future exactly?
I see many cities, like we all know, having looking at opportunities of clean, quiet, silent deliveries at night, and if you can then connect that to your truck systems, then you have a good opportunity. But it's about optimizing your very precious city infrastructure, and I'm optimistic that we can do this, and that we can do a lot of shared freight and passenger. Also, if we bring in the elements of public transport, we also have a lot of infrastructure. But let's be confident. Let's try to look forward, because some of the things have failed, and we need to learn from those. Not
That's
try to
always
fail
like
again, please.
Yes, again. So, in order to conclude, no problem. It's great listening to you. So, what do you think are the priorities for the future? Are there any limits the development of smart cities, smart ports, and or how do you see the future?
I would say the automation of many. So, for example, handling in our terminal is manual. You have seaports that have automated handling systems. So I would say that that will also lead to better competitivity of the terminals, because how it's always the same motto. We have no place left. In inland ports, it's always but not perhaps in Duisburg some place, but in most inland ports you have no place left.
Yep.
That's to say that we must do with our infrastructure, and the growth of the traffic is here. So we must optimize, and that ITS will have the investment in ITS is the only way to do that.
Yeah, I agree with the integration of ports and cities. It's very important that we stick to developing sustainable and livable and healthy cities. So the impact, the environmental impact from truck transport, we should continue to improve, to make freight transport more silent, more clean, and more safe in the cities. And then I think it's a challenge for the economic dynamics to sharing the data systems. Even though the ports often are publicly owned, they have their own data structures, their own data architecture, which is different from the traffic management systems in the cities and the nations. And to continue to develop the growth and the smart city approach, we need to make those systems, those data systems, working together. And I think also the initiatives from the Commission on harmonization, etc., is very important in the coming years.
Yeah, I also agree. You need to use the current infrastructure more intelligent, more efficient, and you need to also to combine the solutions for the cities and for the ports, and to find common solutions. And I think digitalization, automation, electrification are the drivers for that, and will help port cities and also the solution providing industry like Siemens to find together new innovations and solutions, and we are always open for discussions to talk together, and yeah, let's see.
The final word.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting session, and I hope that next year we will do more sessions like this. I see port cities as test beds for ITS, for alternative energies, we from the European Commission, we are there to help you with harmonization, with making sure that this gets multimodal, data sharing, and also to help you de-risking your investments. So also you have our support, and I really hope that we can continue this discussion. Very exciting.
And talking about the future, because in Copenhagen will be held the next ITS Congress. So what are your objectives for 2018?
Yeah, one of the objectives is exactly to continue this discussion, and next year will be even further. So we welcome you September 2018 to Copenhagen to continue this discussion.
Just raise your hand. Yes. Here, please. We need the mic. I don't know.
Hello.
Yes,
yeah,
thank
it's
you.
okay. I am Dorin Dumitrescu. I am president of ITS Romania, who are involved in all mode of transport. I have a proposal to address to the Commission as the member state. I put in half a minute the arguments. The three plenary chosen by the ERTICO Commission, mobility services across border, port and ITS and cooperative system, there are major issue, but not only in the western part in Europe where these services are already displayed, it's more important to the eastern part for develop and assure the balance between the two parts of Europe. For example, in this field, port inland navigation, we have river information services at ITS in inland navigation. We have a directive for 2004. We have progress, technological progress, but not more operational progress. For example, it is electronic ship report and already prepared and solved 10 years ago, but till now it's not operational that in some section, in Rhine, in the center Danube, because there are, for example, Danube Commission, Rhine Commission, Sava Commission, and my proposal is to the Commission, comparative to the CITS platform. We saw yesterday and we'll see in the last plenary the results. In a couple of years, it solves the concept, the roadmap, the activity to create a platform not only with port and navigation and inland navigation, both to put together as a policy level. So I think that in this way we could accelerate the harmonization and also the implementation of the field of river information and also smart port using ITS technologies.
Well, I'm going to take you up on your offer. Yeah. We're going to exchange business cards, and the reason why this is that I really hope that you and many colleagues will answer to our expression of interest. We have a call for experts to join the European Ports Forum, European Ports Forum. Yeah? The deadline is in 11 days, 30th of June. So go to DG Move, European Ports Forum, and we look exactly for people like you. So do come forward, and this is to the whole ITS community. We are really looking for people from all the different stakeholders, and specifically people that know about technology like ITS. So, sir, thank you so much for your question. The other point is that we have around 13 billion euros available for CEF, for the TEN-T corridors, and many of these corridors are going through Central European countries. We see a lot of progress there, and you see and you will notice that in the last 2-3 years we are really investing in innovative technologies. So what we've done for sea roads on road, we will do more on waterways, and we will increase our investments in rail. So you're really, I thank you so much for your question because it's so relevant. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any comments? Yes.
So we are here with the Port Authority, and with the city, and with the who of you have ever contacted their Port Authority? I have done, yeah.
One,
you
two.
Did they? Yeah. 3, 4. Okay, I think we have some work to do for next year.
Why? Tell us why.
Well, I think if you, I live in Brussels. We have a port, and it's very exciting to visit the port. I visited the ports in Hamburg, in Rotterdam, and what you are doing with your clients, and your clients mostly, I think, will find you, but you contact your clients. Look for their challenges. And I think we have so many people that have the solutions in the room. But yeah, I'm very, 5, 6 people have contacted their Port Authority. It's a good start.
Good start, yeah, little people. Okay, any other questions? Yes, here, please.
My name is Joris Cornelissen from Dutch Rijkswaterstaat. I'm hearing stories about congestion, which is an important problem, of course. I know by a fact that in the Netherlands we have around 30% of truckloads that are empty. So on the one hand, we are finding solutions, ITS solutions, for bringing down freight movements, as a matter of speaking. On the other hand, we have a lot of empty trucks, which is useless. So that's also very important. And I would like to address my questions to Mrs. Van Eyck from DG Move, if this is also of interest to you. Thank you.
I hope my colleagues here in the panel will join. So this is exactly, this was the headline question and solution that we're trying to address with last month's road package and with November's investment package. There are some issues that on a European level we cannot address because they are local, national and regional legislation, but really these empty trucks are a big challenge because we would like to decarbonize transport and they are literally in the way.
Yeah, and I can also agree that the empty trucks are one of the biggest problems we have to solve when we are talking about congestion, because on the one hand we are talking about more and more trucks, but then they are empty, like you said, 40%. It's a very high number, and but I think that this sharing platforms, information sharing platforms, could help there to find more freight for these trucks when they are on the road. And this could be a good point, yeah. But it's very important.
Yes, it's important. We see that in the region, the truckload is only 13 ton per truck. 13 ton for a truck who could handle twice this charge. So I think that the ITS can for the availability of such thing. Uber has began so. It's what does Uber? It uses the ability to have passengers. It costs nothing for the driver, but it's the ability to have passengers, BlaBlaCar and so on, and perhaps we will have new solutions for sharing, or also for sharing loads for the freight. But of course, it's more difficult to have. But we have now stakeholders that have contacted us to say, oh, I have an application to do so. But you come to sharing of data and so on and so on. So it's not so simple.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that as a city, or the citizens suffer from the consequences of empty trucks in the way of air pollution, traffic safety, accidents. But at least in Denmark, we have no regulatory means for intervention. There might be some economic consequences for the trucks, but it's mainly a national responsibility to provide the legal framework for having that sort of interventions. Perhaps cities could enter in the public-private dialogue and make campaigns, but that's also the limits we have as a city.
You see a lot of progress, a lot of cities working with consolidation centers, and this is where you talk about public-private, where through a consolidation center you do increase your load factor, and particularly if you combine that with low emission zone or with very expensive land, like in London is happening, where basically you or in Paris, where you see a number of small consolidation centers, that are tailored to this on-demand logistics. So there you see, basically because it's so costly to have any vehicle on the road, you see a lot of increased load factors. But there we are now hitting another barrier, and it is that we are really looking for developing smaller trucks that are kind of in the medium category, because the small delivery vans are now fully electric, but a truck is still maybe at least the most hybrid. So there's a lot of, I really hope that we have a convergence, or that both the alternative fuel side and the clean vehicle side and the ITS move into and accelerate into clean mobility solutions, particularly in cities.
Yeah, there are two more questions. Here,
Thank you. I'm Matthias Wulens from the Flemish government. And my question is, we heard decarbonization, electric vehicles, but have you thought that whenever a load or a container is on the truck, it costs much to, the cost is much too high to get it off the truck on an electric lorry to get in the city. So have you thought maybe about systems or sharing data, how you can get all the containers which has to go to the city, not on the truck, but directly on an electric lorry or something?
Yeah, I mean, there are solutions and concepts. I'm not the specialist for this kind of topics, but I know that there colleagues are working on trucks, electrical trucks, which are going directly from the port to the cities. But it's the question how often it happens that the full container is going to the city. But I think there's always some kind of consolidation center where the goods in the container are consolidated and distributed to a lot of locations in the city. But you're absolutely right, yeah. So electrification of the trucks is a very important topic, but also electrification of bicycles, for example. There are also some projects in some cities where you have small logistic hubs in the city from UPS, for example, and then electrical bicycles distribute the small packages to the end customer.
And there is another question, please.
Thank you. My name is Mihai Niculescu. I'm General Director of ITS Romania. One of the activities that I'm involved is as an expert in the RIS experts groups. And I know that the river information are evolving now, and we have new concepts like the RIS COMEX project that is talking about developing RIS on corridors. We also have the DINA initiatives with the Digital Inland Waterway Network. So my question is to all of you, do you think that the ports are ready to harmonize and to integrate with these initiatives? And maybe what would be the challenges for that to happen?
So, as I said, the integration, we have worked on this integration, because the one port information system involve also the link with the river information system. Of course, you must know when a boat goes out of Basel, for example, how much time it will take to go to Strasbourg, and you must calculate it, because the locks are not always available, and so on and so on, so that the time, the estimate time of arrival in Strasbourg is quite accurate. Now it's quite accurate. So we work with our VNF, our navigation authority, in order to implement these systems, and also in order to have these systems be available in the future for the market, and because The main problem is to ensure when you build a system to ensure that the system will be available in 5 or 10 years. So such initiatives are very interesting for us because they we know that in 10 years this will exist.
I think that is a really valid point that we are using infrastructure that we built maybe 400 years ago. And now on top of that, we are building a digital infrastructure. And what are the lifetime and what is the sustainability of that digital infrastructure? Knowing that you have the physical underneath it, and how will these two infrastructures interact? So I think that is a very valid question. Very good.
One last question. Yeah, here.
Thank you very much. Paul Fevre from the Satellite Applications Catapult. The title of this World Congress is this European Congress, ITS Beyond Borders, which I think, given we're talking about ports here, is very appropriate. Actually, this is an exemplary session for the things that we're trying to achieve. ITS historically has been quite fragmented. What does the panel think is important in terms of achieving sort of the end-to-end vision of goods moving all around the world, so that the customers really do know where their goods are at any time? The role of standardization, the role of connectivity in global systems.
Well,
yeah, maybe I can start. I mean, Siemens is a solution provider, but we are also producing a lot of high gas turbines and so on. So we are also shipper, and it's also interesting for us to know where the goods are and at every process of the supply chain. Not only from the European port to the hinterland in Europe, but also maybe in the port hinterland of Brazil or the USA. And for this, you need also collaborative systems where you can share this information, but also satellite navigation, GPS could be also relevant for this, and to provide more data and to be sure where the goods are.
I think it's very important for the ITS community to look at transport as multimodal, as integrated systems, and as we mentioned earlier, freight on ships perhaps is the most environmental correct way of transporting if you look at the environmental impact per ton. So we really support the Commission's initiatives to move transport from roads to rails and to ships.
I think it's very important. You told about standardization. I would say the main problem is to make the system talk together. For example, in Europe, I don't know exactly how many, but 4 to 5 port community systems are being developed today. The main problem is not to say, no, there will be only one port community system in Europe. That could not be very clever, I would say. But the main problem is to make them talk together. And I know that it's not always obvious. For example, for port community system of Antwerp to talk to the port community system of Rotterdam, for many reasons.
Okay, time is running out. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you very much for this very interesting discussion. Great. So now you continue your visit of the exhibition. I invite you to attend all the other sessions of this Congress. I remind you that you can find all kind of information on the Congress app. If you haven't downloaded it yet, do it now, please. The Congress app, and enjoy the week. Have a nice week here in Strasbourg, and thank you very much for your attention.